Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is, whenever it is in your part of the world. Thank you for joining us. As you've probably already figured out, this is episode 10, part 1 of the Let's Make Some Noise series. Once again, we have a fantastic crew of musicians with us here tonight, and we have a newcomer as well, Aaron Dupre on the keys. Jacob Stanley returns, as well as Taylor Matherne and Drew Brunson. If you've been following the series so far, then just to revisit and recap for a moment, we have been taking an insane amount of pedals, exploring them, and bringing them into a recording studio in our city to try and build a psych rock record. It's been a pretty wild adventure. It's been a very long, arduous journey for sure, but a very fun and rewarding one at the same time. We've got a great lineup of pedals today. We've got some really unique pedals for sure, including the mother repeater that Jacob is playing through currently, and of course the Champion Lecce Skitter that Aaron is running through at the moment. The Season of the Witch is also a really unique pedal that I'm really looking forward to diving in from Swamp Witch Pedals. And in front of us here is also the Jupiter Effect Super Weirdo. So we've got a lot more on top of that to come. Please stick around to the end of the episode to find out what pedals we're giving away. And congratulations everyone who's out there playing your new gear. So without further ado, let's start digging in. All right, the first pedal that we're going to dig into today has an interesting name. I'm not even quite sure exactly how to say it, but I've been calling it the mother repeater. Of course, you see it labeled on the top. It says mother equals repeater. I think in some forums, maybe some people have called this Raptor pedal, but yes, repeater. It is a tape delay with a non-cyclical square wave LFO. And you can also switch that to a sine wave. But obviously, the design of this pedal is to emulate old, worn-out cassette sounds. And there's also a fantastic preamp section that you can introduce so you can gain this delay up and really get overdriven with it. It has a fantastic sound. You could do shoegaze really easy with this. Or you could just blissfully dip out into ambient sounds with its dry kill switch and get 100% wet at any moment. Also has an oscillation foot switch, so you can send it screaming into oscillation. It's a PT2399 delay, and I'm actually a big fan of the oscillation sound of that circuit. So it's a very fantastic, very gorgeous looking pedal. Let's just click it on and hear what it sounds like. Immediately you hear that warm, gooey sound. The preamp is rolled back a little bit, but it's very present in the sound. Let's roll it off a little bit so we can clean it up. And you can disengage the preamp altogether if you want with the plus dB switch. Let's turn up the repeats and kill the dry. A little bit more modulation in there. Currently, it is set to sine wave. All right, let's get our dry signal back in. Let's hear a little bit of the modulation. Obviously, with sine wave, you can get those lovely, warbly vibrato sounds. Let's hear the random modulation. Slow down the modulation speed a little bit. All right, let's hear this thing get driven. And maybe dial back the modulation a little bit. It's a powerful preamp. You can really push other fuzzes into explosive territory as well when you pair it up with this delay. Overall, it's just a very warm, lush sounding analog style tape delay. Up next, this is going to be a very interesting one to explore. I can't say that I entirely understand what's happening in this pedal. At the moment that we are filming this, it's probably about 2 months before this episode is going to air. So Chris sent over his new pedal from Swamp Witch Pedals called Season of the Witch. It is a delay pedal at its core, but with a lot of interesting modulation features and a way of splitting your signal with your control signal and repeating them in phase and out of phase and creating modulation like that is very otherworldly. I've encountered similar things with like the Death by Audio Speed Tripper or the Time Shadows. I don't know if these are comparable to what is actually going on inside this box here. But again, at the time that we're filming this, the manual hasn't even been completed. So we're going to explore some of the sounds. I've already found some incredible sounds inside it. And we're just going to take a chance and see what we can find. Now, this is not your dad's delay pedal. As you can see, there is a wide variety of wave shapes for you to choose for the LFO. Right now it's in random mode, so you hear Jacob playing and you can hear different results, you know, obviously every time that he's kind of digging in. It's random LFO. Let's swap to something a little bit more normal. See, I really hesitate to use the word normal with this pedal. There's a lot of unpredictable things happening here. There's a MOSFET boost, transparent, that you can also use to get a little bit of grit, an added boost to your delay sound. There's a clean blend, of course, so you can blend in how much of your guitar signal you want to hear. There's a feedback control for the delay, a depth, and a rate control for the modulation. Let's roll back the depth a little bit. Let's go for some longer delay times. That's that PT2399 chip at work, you can hear. We must be pushing it. See, I hesitate to describe what's happening within this pedal. It's very hard to describe. There's a lot of complexity here. It's those longer delay times on the PT2399 that introduce a lot of that noise. All right, here we got some really interesting phased out, super fast chorus sounds. Oh my God. What have we done? Whoa, that's very nice. Obviously, a very experimental pedal that begs to be explored. Let's go 100% wet here. Very interesting. I really hope to explore this pedal a lot more. All right, this is the episode of very interesting, strange, and unique pedals. We have another Jupiter Effects offering today, the Jupiter Effects Super Weirdo. So this is a fuzz pedal with an intense modulation circuit that just results in a lot of strange, otherworldly, glitchy sounds. So you can roll the modulation out, and as a fuzz itself, it's a 90s style gated high gain fuzz. There's no gain control. You kind of control it from your volume knob, but I wouldn't say that it cleans up nicely. I'd say instead you end up with more gated results when you do clean it up. Let's just hear the fuzz right off the bat, and we'll start there. All right, let's introduce some modulation, and we'll see what happens here. So you have a time control and a modulation depth. This pedal will scream at you. You've got a feedback mix for when you engage this secondary foot switch here. So the location of this top knob will net you different results depending on where you are. So you can do some cool momentary stop, start, Tom Morello type stuff with that. Let's hear what happens when we roll down the volume knob a little bit. So again, it's not something you would say, oh, this cleans up nicely. You just get extremely gated, gasping, dying fuzz sounds, which is really interesting. Now let's add some modulation into that. Now you can really hear that chorused sound. So we've got that delay time in the sweet spot for this big chorusy fuzzed out sound. It's very cool. And there's also a tone for filtering if things just get kind of too bright and out of hand. It is a total, absolute chaos machine. We love it. All right, we're going to chill out for a moment with the lovely Skitter V2 from Champion Lecce. I'm probably mispronouncing Lecce. I've heard it both ways from the pedal community, Lecce. I should reach out to Wooly for some clarification on that. But this is a lovely creative device, as is with all of their pedals. They're very good at combining effects and finding creative ways to explore the interactivity between those two types of effects that you don't see every day. So this is described as a reverbolo, right? It's a reverb and a tremolo, but there's more to it than that. The kilter switch is a really cool feature that lets you kind of offset the rhythms of the reverb and the tremolo. And you've got a huge waveform selection for the LFO. Let's just kick it on and hear what it sounds right off the bat, and we'll explore it a little bit. Space controls the depth of the modulation. Let's bring that back in. So use a softer waveform here. It gets very fast on the rate. Let's do some slow, wavy modulation. You can hear the reverb is heavily blended in that. We can roll that out if we choose. There's also just a dry blend, so you can really control how much you want of things. We have the option to apply tremolo to the reverb or not as well. It's a very slow modulation. You heard it ducking out there, right? Now you hear that tremolo on the reverb itself on your trails. The kilter switch is really interesting. It was just offset there, so you're hearing right here with the reverb and the tremolo engaged, both of those things kind of playing off of each other, and then you can choose to switch it back up. A choppier waveform going on. We can kill the tremolo altogether and just get full ambient if you want. That's lovely. There's a 3-way tone switch. So you can absolutely use this as a lo-fi style reverb or tremolo. And tap tempo is always handy to have. Very easy to get some very lovely dreamscape sounds with this pedal. Let's go 100% wet real quick here. I'm just going to vibe out to that for a second. Absolutely lovely. All right, moving on. We have the Gorgon Fuzz from Sounds from the Void Effects. This is a newer company that I stumbled upon and really, really liked the aesthetic and the design of this pedal, plus some of the sounds that I'd heard from some demos my friends had made, and really glad they were able to send one in. This is a very versatile fuzz pedal. I've very much fallen in love with it. So many sounds inside this. So you actually have 2 gain stages. You can click on a secondary foot switch and you can get this really nasty upper harmonic excited fuzz that's just like shrill and nasty and great for lead work. And then you can also dial back, the shrillness of that by controlling the notch filter here and getting different results using the bias control here. So this pedal can do a lot. Let's turn it on with the initial fuzz sound, and we're gonna get all the power up we can, but we're gonna gain it back a little bit to start with. The notch filter, very responsive. You can get very much big muff sounding style fuzz sounds out of this, between that and the tone control, which is really going to affect your overall brightness. It's very nice right there. Let's gain it up a little bit. Very thick, dense, and textural. Let's starve it a little bit. All right, so of course, when we starve it, we get some really awesome gated, sputtery fuzz tones there. Oh yeah, all right. Let's kick on the second layer here with the gaze foot switch. This pedal was inspired by the Roland Bebop fuzz, which is actually new to me. Alright, let's power it full on back up. Oh yeah, full on garage rock tone right there. As I said, so many sounds inside this. We're back to the normal fuzz here. Let's click that second layer on one more time. That is such a cool texture. Yeah. Very unique sounding fuzz. We dig it a lot. All right. Up next, we have the KMA Audio Machine's Chief Disruptor. This is got to be one of the coolest bass fuzz/distortion pedals that I've ever come across. There's so much to it. It's very, very well thought out, and it really offers you the widest range possible of fuzz tones in just one enclosure. So this is definitely one of those fuzz pedals where you could throw out your other fuzz pedals and get all the sounds that you want right here. A lot of it has to do with just the fantastic EQ controls that are on board in the secondary mid-foot switch. There's also an expression pedal for allowing you to sweep the mid-frequency so you can get some onboard wah effects, and we'll explore that. I don't have an expression pedal on hand, but I'm going to do it manually so you can hear what it kind of sounds like. It's also 3 modes of fuzz. We're going to start off in tight mode, which is a little bit more tight and focused, and this big center knob, Disruption, is going to control our gain here. So let's check it out. As with a lot of modern bass dirt pedals, we have a clean blend, which is becoming more and more convenient, people are realizing. But beyond that, there's also a post and a pre-switch for introducing your clean signal before or after the dirty signal. This is unique. I've never seen this before. I personally prefer it post, I find. But if you do place it pre, you actually get a little bit more bottom end. I just find it blends in a little bit better. We're going to leave it pre for now. This is switch to vintage mode. It's a little lower gain, but we're going to gain it up here. Then heavy mode. Let's click on that mid-foot switch. So you can do mid-scooping or boosting. Right now, we're boosting. I'm doing a manual frequency sweep that you could do with a foot switch or a controller. Let's do a little mid-scoop. We'll introduce a top-end boost with that top-end switch for all the sizzle that you want. Let's get the clean blend out. Putting the mids back. All right, let's deactivate the mid-foot switch. Keep that top end in. Very zippy sounding fuzz. It's awesome. Let's get back to a kind of muffy sounding tone. Man, this is hands down one of the coolest bass dirt pedals I've ever played. All right, we've got quite an amazing reverb up next. The Red Panda Context 2. Red Panda seems to just nail this with all of their designs. This smaller than even typical enclosure that just has every feature that you would come to expect from a big box reverb or delay. But then they also are thinking 6 steps ahead and and they give you features that you didn't even know that you wanted or needed, and it's hard to live without afterwards. The Context 2 specifically feels very ahead of its time because it came out, I believe, 2 years ago with all of these cool and unique features. So we're going to get Aaron running through it. I'm going to go ahead and kick it on as we explore the modes. There is so much that this pedal can do. We're not going to be able to explore everything, but let's scroll through some of the 8 modes that are on it. You can add delay to all of it, so you're going to hear a little bit of that blended in probably throughout. So we're currently in Hall mode, with the blend pretty high. Lots of pre-delay, long decay. Let's shorten that pre-delay. It has high and low dampening controls, so you can make sure that things don't get too overly bright or too muddy in the low end. There's modulation for all 8 modes. Let's switch to Cathedral mode here. And the modulation is unique to each mode. You have a modulation depth control here. And then with the shift knob, you can access the secondary parameters, so we can control modulation rate. I'm going to go ahead and slow that down generally. And we can also shift how much delay feedback there is, and the delay time as well here. So, like any delay, the time knob, you can do some interesting stuff like that. You can control any of the parameters with an expression controller. Oh, that's lovely. There's onboard preset capability. There's an infinite freeze here by holding down the foot switch. Absolutely lovely. Let's check out the granular reverb. It's an ambient lover's dream for sure. Also run this pedal in stereo with a TRS cable. When I demoed it 2 years ago, I did that demo in full stereo, and it's pretty intense. You absolutely can achieve some extremely vast, wide reverb sounds with this. Let's hear the reverse reverb. It's interesting changing from mode to mode. Fantastic. Let's hear more of the delay in there. So we can control this with the balance control. So as you can hear, it's more than just a reverb pedal. Adding in the delay really helps to achieving those longer droning ambient sounds. Let's back it off more to a reverb here. A shorter delay time so we can achieve some chorusy sounds with the reverb. You can also do ducking and gating. Just an insane amount of controls. Let's hear the plate reverb here. We're going to go 100% wet. Freeze here, and your wet signal carries over. Let's just bask in that for a moment. absolutely mind-blowing pedal. All right, the Australian builder Wetmar Electronics returns with the SELECTOR analog fuzz. Their pedals are aesthetically just a gorgeous thing to behold. Very, very cool looking. Simple controls. There's no gain, just like the Computer 2 that we got into last episode. Control the gain with your volume knob. There's an interesting cleanup on that too. You've got 3 different modes, A, B, and C, and it's supposed to be A is vintage, B is this buzzy, splatty mode, and C is a square wave fuzz that is just phenomenal. And then with the octave up switch, you can engage octave up to any of these. It's really, really cool. There's definitely a volume boost with the octave up, but you can, of course, attenuate that as needed with the volume control. So very straightforward. Let's hear vintage mode to kick it off. Try the square wave. Very heavily compressed, crunchy sound there. And the square wave mode gets you this really interesting, sticky sustain in your notes as well. Let's go to the buzzy mode. So this is like garage rock territory here. Engage that octave up. Lots of glitchy sounds in here because the tracking is going to respond to different things differently. If you're stacking on multiple notes at a time, you're going to get glitchier results. Let's hear that octave up just in the vintage mode. Definitely less glitchy, but definitely a sputtery, gated feel to it. That's more like a classic fuzz sound there for sure. Let's hear that octave up on the square wave fuzz. The textures on that are just insane. It's very, very cool. Very cool. All right. Another very powerful and diverse pedal here, the D1 V2 from Walrus Audio. When this pedal came out, it was definitely very exciting for people to have this many features for a digital delay in a small form enclosure like this, and especially when they revealed that they were going to use Shark DSP processing for their new line. It's a very powerful pedal. There are multiple different modes. Let's see. 5 different modes. You have to check sometimes. You've got digital delay, you've got modulated, vintage mode, dual, where there are 2 delay lines, and you get different results whether you're running in mono or stereo. So if you're in mono, I believe they are in series, and then in stereo you have them split out left and right. And then there's also a really cool reverse mode. Let's go ahead and roll our volume knob up, and we're just going to explore some of the sounds. This is vintage mode that we're hearing right now. Let's switch to straight digital. toggle switch here lets you select between 3 different controls: tone, age, and a modulation. So we can add some warble to this. Let's switch to dual delay here. Roll some of that modulation back. Let's go 100% wet. And we're going to use the attack knob to soften the attack. We're going to go up on the repeats. See what kind of distorted ambience we can get into. Try a reverse delay here. The age control can add a lo-fi feel to any of the modes. This new version also has the stronger reverse effect than the original, so you can really hear those sharp reverse repeats with a lot of clarity. It's a very pronounced effect. It's very cool. First, you have a tap tempo foot switch. You can select your tempo divisions here with this toggle switch. It's actually very capable of very, very clean repeats as a digital delay. We're running into a slightly dirty silk toning right now. There's also MIDI in and through capabilities, onboard and MIDI presets, and USB updatability. And Walrus is very good about updating their pedals with new firmware and constantly improving. Very, very powerful small box delay. All right, we have a return for ADD pedals here, audio disruption devices with the Optical Ring. This is my first time exploring this pedal, and it's very unique. It's probably one of the most interesting ring modulators I've come across, because it's not just your typical ring modulation going on. There's also a fuzz circuit. I don't have a full proper manual of this, but from what I understand, you've got your blend, you've got a gain control, which also affects your output volume, and you've got 2 different textures of gain with this toggle switch here. You also have the shift toggle switch for getting into some really deeper ring modulation, computerized territory. Let's kick it on and see where we have it right now. So it's actually a very usable sound. The large knob changes the pitch of the theremin oscillator. Let's blend more of that in. Crazy sounding. So you kind of set the large knob, you know, the pitch to taste. I think I like it right about there. Let's go to something more subtle here. The other gain mode is a tad darker with a little bit more low end. You know, using the blend control with ring mods is absolutely how you achieve usable sounds out of these. So, dialing it back to taste, right there. Let's go full on extreme for a second here. Oh, that is a cool sound right there. This is a very cool pedal, for sure. All right, the lovely pulse Doppler from Thorpe Effects, which was a joint effort between Adrian Thorpe and Dan Coggins, formerly of Lovetone. They say this was designed to be the final word in analog phasing, and in similarity with the camouflage, they really pulled out all the stops to deliver an extremely awesome interactive experience with the interface here. There are so many sounds inside this, outside of phasing as well, with vibrato and tremolo, also tappable inside. You can hear it has a very lush sound to begin with. We're in pulse mode, which has a little bit of a low cut to it. It's very handy for phasing. Sometimes you want the effect, but you don't want the low end carried around and swung around with the phaser. You have rate, blend, depth, manual control, and enhance on here. And the controls are very interactive, plus you've got some toggle switches for some different variations of phasing. Right now we're in dual mode. You can see the lights blinking in tandem. If we switch to figure 8, you'll see the offset rhythmic times here between your carrier signal and the phase signal. I hope that I am describing this properly. This is actually a very complex design. There's a lot going on here. That movement is fantastic. Switch to normal for your more stereotypical phaser sound. And with the depth all the way up. Very powerful and pronounced. Let's slow down the rate. And let's go back to dual mode here. Let's see how slow and syrupy we can make this. When we click on this left foot switch, gets rid of the dry signal, and this is where you achieve more of your vibrato sounds. Let's see what happens if we crank that rate. Very interesting sounds in here. With the manual control, you can kind of determine how pronounced the effect is. Let's go back to pulse mode. And I'm going to return out of the vibrato mode. all the chewy, syrupy phaser sounds that you could ever want can be found here. It's just a fantastic sounding phaser, no matter how you spin it. Fantastic job with this Thorpe. All right, we actually have a prototype pedal up on the slab here. The Farm Pedals Dancing Prophet. They sent in several pedals for the series, and there were several unreleased pedals at the time. So I'm not positive whether this pedal is available yet, but it is a low-pass envelope filter. And it's just very nice sounding. It's got gain controls, you have sensitivity, you can set the decay of the envelope window, and there's a toggle switch, which in the manual says up is for up drive, down is for down drive, and it sounds like it's the direction of the envelope opening. So let's just dig in. You know, you can use envelope filters for a lot of things, but we're gonna get funky here. Sensitivity controls, you can dial into the dynamics of your own playing. So I have it dialed pretty much to where it's opening at Taylor's hardest hits. You can also add in bass, which makes this a really good envelope filter for applying on bass guitar, because you can lose bass very often. So see here, I can thin it out. Sometimes that's exactly what you want. I find the gain circuit in here just adds a lot of fatness, whereas with a lot of envelope filters, things can get too thin, especially with digital ones. There's a master volume, and then you can set the peak frequency, which is very pronounced here, darker as we roll it back. Let's go to down drive. So I think short decay works best in this mode. Very full, very funky. Let's go back. Let's hear that low and add it back in. Yeah, all right. All right, so not exactly a pedal, and maybe that's hypocrisy on this show, but we're going to introduce a really cool effects unit of sorts because, well, it's an effects loop, which is a type of effect in and of itself, albeit it's a wireless effects loop, the Aviate Audio Air Patch. I actually did a full demo of this with my friend John Madeir about a year and a half ago. You can check that out. You create an effects loop just like you would with anything by plugging the pedals that you want to control in the effects loop through the send and return, and then you let your signal flow through the ins and the outs. Then it sends a wireless signal to your small wireless controller that you can attach to any instrument, to your strap. You can just straight hold it in your hand. You can give it to someone else for them to use as a remote controller. There's a lot of uses for this, right? Of course, you could have an effects loop that you can engage at your feet, but I've been in a situation many times where I overstep, or on an effects loop controller, the foot switches are just a little too close to each other, and I hit the wrong one, and that can be a pain. With this, you can walk around the stage, engage your effects whenever you want. But beyond that, it also has 3 modes, which is reverse momentary, and latching. So Taylor's going to roll up his volume knob, play a little bit of sludge here with the Chief Disruptor and the motherfucker Peter, and he's going to show us how we can just introduce it at the right moments. So when he's not touching the switch, you're just hearing the Chief Disruptor. And then at these key moments, he can bring in the delay. Which on its own just could be a little overwhelming for a big bass riff like this. So it's cool to have the option just to bring it in when you want. Of course, you could also use this in the reverse way, with the reverse momentary. You can have your standard effects on and cut them whenever you want. You could also use it as a kill switch in that regard. You can do stuttering Tom Morello-like fits and starts, or any other creative way that you would want to apply it. Very cool and unique device. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is going to do it for us tonight. As always, we're working really hard to explore these pedals for you in the best way we can, and as little time that we have here. Can't believe we've already made it 10 episodes in the series. It's been a wild journey for sure. Thank you to our team of excellent musicians here today. Stick around, and we're going to talk about which pedals are up for grabs this week. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in, and everyone who has showed your support in any way. So we really appreciate you guys. We'll see you on next episode.